The stars looked different in the outer rim. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, watching the endless black stretch before them. They had been mapping empty space for 3 months now, finding nothing but rocks and dead planets. His crew was tired. He was tired. But the mission continued. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Park Ji-hae said from her station. She was the first officer, and she never called something strange, unless it really was. Dae-ho walked over to her screen. "What am I looking at?" "A signal. Very weak, but it's there, repeating every 47 seconds. Ji-hae pulled up the star charts. "But here's the weird part. There's no planet listed at those coordinates. The chart shows empty space." Dae-ho frowned. In all his years exploring, he had never seen a chart simply miss a planet. "Are you sure the signal is real?" "Positive. And Captain, I checked the old archives. 20 years ago, there was a planet listed here. Then, it just disappeared from the records." Something cold moved through Dae-ho's chest. Planets didn't just disappear from records, not unless someone wanted them to disappear. "Change course. Let's see what's there." 2 days later, they found it. A blue and green world that should have been beautiful but looked sick instead. Brown scars covered the continents. The oceans had strange colors in them, like oil mixing with water. Choi Min-seo brought the ship into orbit carefully, reading breathable atmosphere, but barely, she reported. Lots of chemical pollution. Whatever happened down there, it wasn't natural. Dae-ho looked at his chief medical officer. "Hyun-woo, gear up. We're going down." Kang Hyun-woo nodded and grabbed his medical kit. He was young for a chief medical officer, only 32, but he was the best doctor Dae-ho had ever served with. They took a shuttle down with Min-seo flying and 4 security officers watching their backs. The city they landed in looked like a graveyard. Buildings made of strange crystalline material stood everywhere, but they were crumbling. Streets were empty except for trash that blew in the toxic wind. Hyun-woo's scanner kept beeping warnings about the air quality. "Whatever lived here is probably dead," one of the security officers said. Then they saw movement. A figure emerged from one of the buildings, and Hyun-woo's breath caught. The being was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of living crystal. Light moved under the surface of their skin in soft waves. They wore simple robes and moved slowly, like every step hurt. "Hello?" Dae-ho called out. "We're explorers from Earth. We received your distress signal." The crystalline being stopped and looked at them. Then something happened that Hyun-woo would never forget. He felt emotions that weren't his own. Surprise. Hope. Desperate. Aching hope. The feelings flowed into his mind like water. The being spoke, but not with their mouth. The words appeared in their minds, gentle and sad. "You came. After so long, someone finally came." More of them appeared from the buildings. Dozens. Then hundreds. All thin. All moving like they were sick. All looking at the humans with those same desperate eyes. The first being stepped closer. "I am called Thasara. We are the Valari. We have been waiting 20 years for someone to answer." Hyun-woo's medical scanner was going crazy. "Captain, they're dying. All of them. Some kind of genetic breakdown." Thasara's emotions flowed again. This time, it was acceptance, mixed with sorrow. "Yes, the poison they left behind is killing us. We tried to clean it, but we don't understand such things. We were never good at understanding when others meant us harm." "Who left poison?" Dae-ho asked. "Who did this?" What followed was a story that made Hyun-woo sick to his stomach. The Valari had been a peaceful species of explorers and artists. They had a gift for empathy, for feeling what others felt, but they had one terrible weakness. They could not understand lies. Their minds simply could not process the concept of deception. When someone told them something, they believed it completely. First came the Korthaxi, who said they wanted friendship. They used the Valari as spies, sending them to other species, while the Valari had no idea they were being used. Then came the Brennar, who needed truth-tellers for their courts. They took thousands of Valari away, promising good lives. Those Valari were never seen again. The Yulani were the worst. They signed trade agreements that the Valari thought were fair. The Valari gave away their resources, their technology, their art. In return, they got worthless junk. By the time the Valari realized what had happened, their world was stripped bare. Then the factories came. The other species built massive industrial plants on Valara Prime, dumping waste into the soil and water. The Valari got sick. They protested, but no one listened. When the last factory finally closed, the alien species simply left. They didn't clean up. They didn't help. They just abandoned the Valari to die slowly in the poison they had created. The Galactic Union declared us a failed species, Thesara explained. They said we were too weak to survive in the galaxy. They erased our world from the charts, so no one would waste resources helping us. How many of you are left? Hyunwoo asked quietly. 40,000. Maybe less now. We lose more every day. Daeho looked at his crew. He saw the same horror on their faces that he felt in his heart. Minseo was crying. One of the security officers looked ready to punch something. We need to contact Earth Command, Jihei said. This is bigger than us. Daeho nodded, but he was already making calculations in his head. Food, medicine, equipment. Hyunwoo. Can they be saved? The doctor was scanning Thesara with intense focus. Maybe. The genetic damage is severe, but it's recent enough that we might reverse it. We'd need major resources, though. Hospital ships, geneticists, terraforming equipment to clean the planet. Then that's what we'll get. Daeho turned to the Valari. Thesara, I can't promise we can save everyone, but I promise you this. Humanity will not abandon you. We will try. Thesara's emotions flooded through them all. Disbelief, joy, fear of hoping too much. Why? Why would you help us? Everyone else decided we weren't worth the effort. Daeho smiled sadly. Because that's not who we are. We don't measure worth in profit. As they returned to the ship, Hyunwoo couldn't stop thinking about Thesara's question. Why help them? He knew the answer in his bones, even if he couldn't put it into words yet. Because they were people. Because they were suffering. Because someone had to give a damn. That night, Daeho sent his report to Earth Command. He knew what he was asking for was huge. He knew Command might say no. But as he looked at the dying world below, he made a decision. If Earth wouldn't help, he would. Even if it meant the end of his career, some things were more important than following orders. Hyunwoo hadn't slept in 36 hours. The medical bay of the Eternal Dawn was filled with Valari patients, and each one was a puzzle he was desperately trying to solve. Their crystalline biology was unlike anything he had studied. Where humans had cells, the Valari had what he could only describe as living geometric patterns. Where humans had DNA, they had something that looked like frozen music. Doctor, this one's readings are dropping again, his assistant called out. Hyunwoo rushed over to the young Valari on the examination table. She had introduced herself as Miresi before she collapsed. Now, her skin was turning gray, the light beneath it fading. He adjusted the treatment he had been trying, a combination of human gene therapy and something he was making up as he went along. Come on, he whispered. Miresi's eyes opened slowly. She looked at him, and he felt her gratitude like warm sunlight. The Valari couldn't help sharing their emotions. It was just part of who they were. You're very tired, she said in his mind. Her mental voice was soft, like a child's. You should rest. I'll rest when you're better, Hyunwoo replied, checking her readings. Not great, but better. Tell me about your world. Before the others came, what Miercy showed him wasn't words. It was memory, flowing directly into his mind. He saw Valara Prime as it had been. Cities that grew like crystals. Each one a work of art. Valari children learning to share emotions across distances, creating symphonies of feeling that were their form of music. Scientists who studied the universe not with machines, but by feeling the quantum vibrations of atoms themselves. It was beautiful. It was everything humans might have been if they had evolved, without violence or deception, in their history. When the memory faded, Hyunwoo had tears on his face. Up on the bridge, Dae-ho was having a very different conversation. Admiral Shin-bo-ra's face filled the communication screen, and she did not look happy. Let me understand this correctly, Captain. You want me to authorize a full-scale rescue operation for a species that the Galactic Union has officially written off? Yes, Admiral. A species that has no resources, no political power, and no way to repay us? They're dying, Admiral. All of them. In about 4 months, they'll be extinct. Bo-ra was quiet for a long moment. She was a hard woman, shaped by years of military service. But Dae-ho had always respected her fairness. I've read your report. I've seen the medical scans. Captain, I believe you. I believe they need help. But you're asking Earth to commit enormous resources for no strategic gain. I'm asking Earth to do the right thing. The right thing. Bo-ra laughed. But there was no humor in it. Do you know what's happening back home? The council is split down the middle. Economics Minister Kwon is calling you a bleeding heart who wants to bankrupt humanity. Defense Minister Park says helping the Valari will make enemies of half the Galactic Union. Ambassador Han is the only one on your side. Yoon Soo-jin, the ship's navigator, was listening from her station. She spoke up. Admiral, if I may. I ran the calculations. The resources needed aren't actually that enormous. 3 hospital ships, 2 terraforming vessels, and supply runs for 6 months. That's less than what we spent on the Mars expansion last year. The cost isn't just money, Navigator. It's political capital. Dae-ho leaned forward. Admiral, my grandmother was a refugee from the Fourth Border War. She survived because strangers took her in, even though they had no reason to. She used to tell me that humanity's strength wasn't our technology or our military. It was that we remembered what it felt like to be helpless. Bo-ra's expression softened slightly. Your grandmother was a wise woman. Fine. I'll present your case to the council again. But Dae-ho, I need you to prepare for the possibility they say no. Can you accept that? Dae-ho was quiet for 3 heartbeats. Then he said, No, Admiral. I can't. Excuse me? If the council says no, I'm staying anyway. Court-martial me if you want. But I'm not leaving these people to die. The bridge went silent. Every crew member was staring at their captain. Bo-ra's face went through several expressions before settling on something like respect mixed with frustration. You're putting your career on the line for aliens you met 3 days ago. I'm putting my career on the line for people who need help. That's all they are, Admiral. People. After Bo-ra disconnected, Ji-hae walked over to Dae-ho. You know the crew heard all of that, right? I know. You know what you're asking them to risk? I know. That's why I'm not asking. Anyone who wants to leave can take a shuttle back to the nearest human outpost. No judgment, no consequences. Ji-hae smiled. You really think any of us are going anywhere? She raised her voice. All crew. This is First Officer Park. Captain Lee has made his position clear. We're staying to help the Valari, regardless of orders. If anyone wants to leave, report to Shuttle Bay. In 1 hour. 1 hour later, the Shuttle Bay was empty. Every single crew member had chosen to stay. Nam Tae-yang, the chief engineer, was already going through the ship's resources. We've got enough medical supplies for maybe 2 weeks of intensive care. Food for the Valari. That's trickier. I'm not even sure what they eat. They photosynthesize partly, Hyunwoo explained over the comm. But They also need certain minerals. I'm working on supplements we can make from our stores. Down on the surface, other crew members were setting up a basic medical camp near the largest Valari settlement. Thesara watched them work with a mixture of wonder and confusion. I don't understand, the elder admitted to Jihei. We have nothing to offer you. We can't pay you. We can't help your species in any way. Why do this? Jihei thought about her own grandmother, the one who had been saved by strangers during the war. She thought about all the times in human history when people had helped each other for no reason except that it was right. Because you're alive, she said simply. Because you matter. That's enough. That night, Daeho made an unauthorized broadcast. He bypassed official channels and sent a message directly to every human colony, every station, every ship in range. In it, he explained the Valari situation. He showed footage of the dying world, of the desperate people. He asked for volunteers, supplies, anything people could spare. This is not an official Earth military operation, he said into the camera. This is me, Lee Daeho, asking for help. I don't care if Command approves. I don't care if the Galactic Union disapproves. There are 40,000 people dying down there, and we can save them. So, I'm asking, please, help us help them. He had no idea if anyone would answer. The next morning, he got his reply. Not from Earth Command, from a Galactic Union destroyer that had just entered orbit. The commander was a Skaresh named Vraxel, and his message was simple and cold. Human vessel Eternal Dawn, you are in violation of Galactic Union Protocol 7. This planet has been designated non-viable. You have 12 hours to evacuate, or we will remove you by force. Daeho looked at his crew. They looked back at him. Not one of them suggested leaving. Send a response, he told communications. Tell them no. Captain, they have enough weapons to turn us into dust. I know. Tell them anyway. As the message went out, Hyunwoo was in medical bay with Mirsi. She had felt the threat through the empathic field all Valari shared. You should go, she said sadly. You tried. That's more than anyone else did. We're not going anywhere, Hyunwoo promised. Miresi reached out and touched his hand. Her crystalline fingers were cool and smooth. Why are humans like this? Every other species in the galaxy learns to look away from suffering. But you can't. Why? Why? Hyunwoo thought about it. Maybe because we've suffered too. We know what it's like to be abandoned. We know what it's like to be considered worthless. He squeezed her hand, gently, and we decided, a long time ago, that no one should feel that way ever again if we could help it. Above them, in orbit, the destroyer's weapons powered up. The deadline was counting down. Daeho sat in his captain's chair and waited. He had made his choice. Now he would live with the consequences. The 12 hours passed like years. Daeho sat in his command chair, watching the destroyer on his screen. The Skarish vessel was 3 times the size of the Eternal Dawn and carried enough firepower to crack a planet. Against it, his survey ship had exactly 2 defensive turrets meant for shooting asteroids. 10 minutes until deadline. Ji-Ye reported quietly. The crew was at their stations, trying to look calm. Some of them were succeeding better than others. Min Seo kept checking her piloting controls even though there was nowhere to run. Taeyang was working on boosting their shields, even though everyone knew it wouldn't matter. Captain, incoming message from the destroyer, Communications Officer Lee said. Commander Vraxil appeared on screen. He was a Skaresh, a species that looked like someone had crossed a lizard with a bear and then given it armor plating. His yellow eyes were cold as he stared at Daeho. Human. Your time is up. Leave now or be destroyed. We're not leaving, Daeho said. His voice was steady, even though his heart was hammering. These people need help. These people are designated non-viable by Union law. They have failed to adapt to galactic civilization. Helping them is a waste of resources. Waste of resources? Daeho felt anger rising in his chest. They're alive. They're people. That's not a waste. You don't understand our laws, human. The Valari were given chances. They failed. This is the natural result. Natural? This time, Jihei spoke up. Commander, we've seen the records. The Valari didn't fail. They were exploited. Every species that came here lied to them, used them, and left them to die in poison. That's not natural. That's murder. Vraxel's expression didn't change. Weakness is not an excuse. If a species cannot protect itself, it does not deserve to survive. That is the way of the galaxy. Then maybe the galaxy's way is wrong, Deho said. There was a long silence. Then Vraxel spoke again, and this time there was something different in his voice, something almost like doubt. You would die for them? For aliens you met days ago? For a species that offers you nothing? In a heartbeat. That is illogical. Maybe. But it's right. Vraxel seemed about to respond when another voice cut in. It was Admiral Bo-Ra. And she sounded furious. Scarish vessel. This is Admiral Shin Bo-Ra of the Earth Defense Fleet. You will stand down immediately. On Deho's screen, new contacts appeared. Ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Human ships, 5 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and Bo-Ra's carrier, the Indomitable Will. Deho felt his throat get tight. Bo-Ra had come. Earth had come. Admiral, Vraxel said carefully. This is a Union matter. Earth should not interfere. Earth will interfere wherever we see people suffering, Bo-Ra replied. Now power down your weapons, or we'll power them down for you. You would start a war over this failed species? We would stand up for what's right. If that means war, so be it. For a long moment, nobody moved. 2 fleets faced each other in orbit of a dying world. One wrong move, one trigger-happy officer, and the galaxy would burn. Then something unexpected happened. More ships arrived. Not human ships. Not Union ships. Independent vessels from a dozen different species. Mining crews, merchants, even a few science ships. They formed a loose ring around the planet. This is Captain Ven of the independent freighter Starhauler, a gruff voice announced. We heard the humans' message. We're here to help the Valari. This is Dr. Kellix of the Brenner Science Institute, another voice added. My species wronged the Valari. I cannot fix that. But I can help now. More voices joined in. Merchants offering supplies. Scientists offering expertise. Even some Union species, defying their own government to do what they thought was right. Within an hour, over 30 ships had gathered at Valara Prime. Vraxel looked at his screen in what might have been shock. This is madness. All of you would risk conflict with the Union for this? The Union doesn't speak for everyone, Captain Ven replied. Some of us still remember what honor means. Back on the surface, Hyunwoo was organizing the sudden flood of help. The medical camp had transformed overnight into a proper hospital. Dr. Song Jae-won, a geneticist from one of the human ships, was already analyzing Valari DNA. This is incredible, Jae-won said, looking at his screens. The damage is severe, but it's recent. If we can flush the toxins and repair the genetic code, they'll recover. We need time, though. At least 3 months of intensive treatment. We'll have it, Hyunwoo promised, hoping he was right. Miersi was helping translate between the humans and other Valari. Her condition had stabilized with treatment, and she had become Hyunwoo's assistant. She felt every ship that arrived in orbit, felt the genuine desire to help flowing from their crews. I don't understand this galaxy anymore, she said quietly. For 20 years, no one came. Now everyone comes. Why? Because sometimes all it takes is one person to stand up, Hyunwoo replied. Then others remember they can stand too. Taeyang and his counterpart from the Indomitable Will, engineer An Soo-bin, were working on the planet's atmosphere. They had brought terraforming equipment and we're setting up scrubbers across the major pollution zones. This is going to take years to fix completely, Subin said, checking her readings. But we can make it breathable and safe within 6 months. The Valari don't have years, Taeyang replied, so we work fast. In orbit, Ambassador Han Eun-ji had arrived on a fast courier ship. She immediately started broadcasting to Union headquarters. I am requesting an emergency tribunal. I have evidence that Union members systematically violated Protocol 7's protection clauses. The Valari were not a failed species. They were murdered species. And the Union helped. Meanwhile, Ji-hye and intelligence officer Baek Se-jin were going through recovered data from the abandoned factories. What they found made them sick. Look at this, Se-jin said, showing Ji-hye a file. Korthaxi military reports. They knew the pollution would cause genetic damage. They didn't care. They calculated the Valari would die off in 30 years, and no one would investigate. And this, Ji-hye added, pulling up another file. Union inspectors came 3 times. Each time, they certified the factories as within acceptable parameters. But look at the payment records. The inspectors were bribed. We need to send this to Ambassador Han. Already done. The evidence started spreading across galactic networks. News stations picked it up. Independent journalists investigated. Within days, what had been a forgotten tragedy became the biggest scandal in Union history. On Valara Prime, life was changing rapidly. Valari who had been dying were recovering. Children who had never known clean air were breathing freely. Thasara walked through the medical camp, feeling the emotions of hundreds of helpers from dozens of species. 20 years we waited, the elder said to Daeho. 20 years of silence. Then you came, and suddenly the galaxy remembered we existed. Ah. The galaxy didn't forget you, Daeho replied. They were told to forget. There's a difference. Above them, the standoff continued. Vraxel's destroyer remained in position, but 2 more Union ships had arrived. Fleet Commander Threx, a high-ranking Union officer, now commanded the blockade. But something was changing. Vraxel hadn't fired. He watched the humans and others working on the surface. He saw the Valari recovering, and he started to wonder if the Union's way was really the right way after all. One night, his second officer spoke to him privately. Commander, I have family on the surface of our homeworld. Civilians. If they were dying and everyone ignored them, I would want someone like these humans to help. Vraxel didn't respond, but he thought about it. On Earth, billions watched the drama unfold. Public opinion shifted rapidly. We don't abandon people became a rallying cry. The Council received millions of messages demanding they support the rescue. And in orbit of Valara Prime, 2 fleets waited. One representing the old way, where the weak were discarded. One representing something new, where the weak were protected. The galaxy watched and wondered which side would blink first. Hyun-woo worked through another night, saving Valari lives one at a time. Miresi worked beside him, her people slowly returning from the edge of extinction. Will there be war? She asked him during a quiet moment. I don't know, Hyun-woo admitted. I hope not. But if there is, we won't abandon you. That's a promise. Miresi felt the truth of his words through her empathic sense. Humans, she realized, were perhaps the only species in the galaxy who said what they meant, and meant what they said. They were like the Valari in that way. Maybe that's why they had come when no one else did. The tribunal chamber on Epsilon 7 station was packed. Representatives from 200 species crowded the galleries, while news cameras from across the galaxy broadcast every moment. Ambassador Han Eun-ji stood at the central podium, facing the Union Council. Honored Council members, she began. I present evidence of systematic violation of Protocol 7, the very law you claim to uphold. The head counselor, a massive creature called Worthix, gestured dismissively. The Valari case was closed decades ago. They were evaluated and found non-viable. evaluated by inspectors who were bribed. Unji pulled up financial records on the main screen. Inspector Thraxis received 2 million credits from Korthaxi corporations. Inspector Mellon had his family's debts cleared by Brenner interests. Shall I continue? Murmurs filled the chamber. Worthix tried to maintain composure. Those are serious accusations. They're facts. But that's not even the worst part. Yunji's voice hardened. You knew. The council knew what was happening and chose to look away because union members were profiting. She played video footage. Korthaxi commanders discussing how to use Valari empaths as weapons. Brenner officials laughing about enslaving the naive fools. Yulani merchants bragging about cheating the Valari out of resources worth billions. And through it all, union inspectors filing reports that said everything was fine. The final video was the hardest to watch. A Valari child, no more than 5 years old, asking a union inspector why the water hurt to drink. The inspector had walked away without answering. The chamber went silent. Several species representatives looked ashamed. Even Worthix seemed uncomfortable. The Valari didn't fail. Yunji said quietly. They were murdered. Slowly. Deliberately. And the Union helped hide the crime. At Valara Prime, the standoff continued. Admiral Bo-Ra paced her bridge, calculating possibilities. Fleet Commander Threx had 3 heavy cruisers now, matching her firepower. Both fleets were locked in position. Neither willing to fire first, but neither willing to back down. Admiral, we're receiving encrypted orders from Earth Command, her communications officer reported. Bo-Ra read them and felt cold. The Council, under pressure from some members who feared conflict, was ordering her to withdraw, to abandon the Valari and let the Union handle it. She looked at the planet below, where hundreds of people were working to save an entire species. She thought about Captain Lee Dae-ho, who had risked everything because it was right. She thought about her own oath as an officer. To protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Acknowledged, she told communications. Then, quietly, file those orders and forget about them. Admiral, you heard me. We're staying. Her bridge crew smiled. Nobody questioned the order. On the surface, the rescue operation had become something beautiful. Humans worked alongside Brenner scientists, who wanted to make up for their species' crimes. Korthaxi engineers, defying their own government, helped build new water purification systems. Even some Scarish had landed, offering their strength to move heavy equipment. Kim Hae-won, a human xenobiologist, made a breakthrough that changed everything. She had been studying how Valari perceived the universe when she discovered something incredible. Dr. Kang, you need to see this, she called to Hyunwoo. She showed him data that made his eyes widen. The Valari don't just feel emotions. They can sense quantum states. They can literally feel the probability waves of atoms before they collapse. What does that mean? It means they can predict quantum events. Do you understand what that could mean for science? For technology? For understanding the universe itself? Hae-won was almost bouncing with excitement. The Valari aren't just another species. They're a key to unlocking questions we didn't even know how to ask. Word of the discovery spread quickly. Suddenly, scientists across the galaxy wanted access to Valara Prime. Not to exploit, but to learn. The Valari went from being considered worthless to being invaluable, and it happened in less than a week. Miresi found the irony bitter. Now we're useful. Everyone wants to help. Where were they when we were just dying people who needed help? You're right to be angry, Hyunwoo said. But look at it this way. Some came because you're useful. But we came before we knew that. We came because you were alive. Remember that difference. She touched his hand, sharing gratitude through her empathic sense. I will never forget that humans came first. When we had nothing to offer except our deaths, you still came. Back on Epsilon 7, the tribunal was reaching its conclusion. Unji had presented 3 days of evidence. The corruption was undeniable. Union representatives squirmed in their seats as their crimes were laid bare for the galaxy to see. But Worthix wasn't giving up. Even if we accept these accusations, it doesn't change the current situation. The humans are defying Union authority. They must withdraw. Why? This came from Kellex, the Brenner scientist who had joined the rescue. He had requested and been granted permission to speak. Because the Union says so? The Union that allowed this genocide to happen? The Union that profited from suffering? Why should anyone follow such authority? This is about order, Worthix insisted. About maintaining galactic stability. Stability? Unji's voice was sharp. You want stability built on mass graves? That's not stability. That's tyranny. Riots had started on several Union worlds. Citizens who were discovering what their governments had done were demanding accountability. On the Korthaxi homeworld, protesters surrounded government buildings. On Brenner Prime, officials were being arrested by their own people. The Union was fracturing, and everyone knew it. In orbit of Velara Prime, Commander Vraxil received new orders. They were marked top secret, eyes only. He read them twice, not believing what he saw. Fleet Commander Threx had been ordered to destroy the human fleet and blame it on a system malfunction. To start a war and make it look like an accident. Vraxil stared at the orders for a long time. He thought about his career, his honor, his oath. He thought about the humans on the surface, saving people who everyone said weren't worth saving. He made a decision that would change his life forever. Open a channel to Admiral Bo-Ra, he told his communications officer. Secure and private. When Bo-Ra's face appeared on his screen, he spoke quickly. Admiral, I am sending you classified Union orders. Read them. You are in immediate danger. Why are you helping us? Because I have watched your people for 2 weeks. I have seen you work without rest, to save aliens you owe nothing to. I have seen you risk war for strangers. Vraxil's voice was rough. Minuski, I have seen you rest. My people value strength above all. But I am beginning to think we have defined strength wrong. Perhaps the strongest thing is to care, when caring costs everything. He transmitted the orders. Bo-Ra read them and went pale. Threx means to attack us. Yes. And I will not be part of it. Admiral Bo-Ra, I formally request asylum with the Earth Fleet. I and my crew. We will not follow these orders. Granted. Welcome aboard, Commander. Vraxil's ship broke formation with the Union fleet and moved to join the humans. 3 other Union vessels, their crews sickened by the orders they had received, followed him. Fleet Commander Threx watched his force crumble and knew his plan was failing, but he had his orders, and he was a loyal soldier. He began targeting solutions for the human carrier. On the surface, Seijin detected the weapons lock. They're preparing to fire. Deho grabbed communications. All ships, defensive positions. They're actually doing it. But before Threx could give the order to fire, something unexpected happened. His own crew mutinied. His second officer, a young Skaresh named Ven, pulled a weapon. No, sir. I won't follow this order. I am your commander. You were my commander. Now you're just someone I'm ashamed to have served with. Threx was confined to quarters while his crew took control. They immediately stood down their weapons and opened channels to apologize to the human fleet. The crisis was over. Not because one side won, but because good people on both sides refused to fight an unjust war. Down on Velara Prime, Hyun-Woo was treating his 100th patient when he heard the news. No battle. No war. Just people choosing to do the right thing. Miresi felt his relief through their connection. Is it over? The fighting, yes. But the work's just beginning. We still have 30,000 Velari to heal, and a planet to clean. But we'll live. Because of you. Because humans couldn't look away from suffering. 3 days later, the tribunal reached its verdict. The Union Council was dissolved. Reform governments took over. The Valara Accords were drafted, stating that no species could be declared non-viable. That protection of life was mandatory, not optional. That the galaxy had a responsibility to its weakest members. Ambassador Yunji stood before the new council and said simply, "We didn't save the Valari. We recognize them. There's a difference. One requires strength, the other requires humanity." The word humanity entered galactic languages not as a species name, but as a concept. To have humanity meant to help when helping cost everything. To protect the weak, to stand up when everyone else sat down. The Valari would live. And the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the first human ship arrived at Valara Prime, the planet looked different. The brown scars on the continents were fading to green. The oceans were clearing. The air no longer burned to breathe. And in the cities, crystalline buildings that had been crumbling were being carefully restored by crews of humans and Valari working together. Hyunwoo stood on a hill overlooking the main settlement, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed extra beautiful after so long being hidden by pollution. Miresi stood beside him. Her skin glowed with healthy light now, the gray tones completely gone. 35,000, she said quietly. That's how many of us survived. Out of 40,000, when you arrived. I'm sorry we couldn't save everyone. You saved most of us. When we thought we would all die. She turned to look at him. Dr. Song says our genetics are stable now. We can have children again. Healthy children. Our species will continue. Hyunwoo felt her emotions through the connection they had developed. Joy mixed with grief for those lost, and underneath it all, deep gratitude. What will you do now? Your people have a second chance. We rebuild, but differently this time. We're learning about the concept of healthy skepticism, how to protect ourselves without losing our empathy. It's strange and difficult, but we must learn. You're learning to understand lies, to recognize them, yes. We'll never be good at lying ourselves. Our biology won't allow it. But we can learn when others aren't being truthful. She smiled. One of your teachers explained it as trust, but verify. We like that phrase. Down in the city, Taeyang and his team were celebrating. The last atmospheric scrubber had just come online. Full planetary cleanup would take years, but the immediate danger was over. Valara Prime could sustain life again. We did it, Subin said, checking the final readings. The air is clean. Taeyang looked at the Velari engineer he'd been working with, a gentle person named Selara. They had grown close over the months, communication flowing between them in a mix of words and shared emotions. We did it together. Selara touched his hand, sharing joy that made him laugh out loud. Your species is strange. You work so hard for others. Don't you ever rest? We'll rest when everyone's safe, Taeyang replied. Then, more quietly, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? There's a human tradition I'd like to share with you. The Valari didn't blush, but Selara's skin brightened with pleased emotion. I would like that very much. In orbit, what had been a standoff had become a construction zone. Ships from dozens of species worked together, building a station that would serve as both a research facility and a symbol. The Unity Station would study Valari quantum sensitivity, while also serving as headquarters for the new Galactic Protection Service. Admiral Bo-Ra watched the construction from her bridge. Beside her stood former Commander Vraxil, who now served as her liaison to non-human personnel. He had taken to his new role with surprising enthusiasm. My people are requesting permission to establish an embassy on Valara Prime, he told her. Many Scarish are ashamed of what our government almost did. They want to help rebuild. Granted. The more species involved, the stronger the protection becomes. You're building something unprecedented, Admiral. A military force dedicated not to conquest but to protection. Bo-Ra smiled. Someone once told me that strength isn't about who you can defeat. It's about who you're willing to defend. Back on Earth, the story of the Valari had captured everyone's attention. Schools taught about it. Artists made films about it. It became a defining moment in human history. The time when humanity stood up for complete strangers and changed the galaxy doing it. Ambassador Yunji gave a speech that was broadcast across human space. We were tested. Not by enemies or war, but by suffering we could have ignored. We could have looked away, like others did. We could have calculated that saving the Valari wasn't worth the cost. But we didn't, because that's not who we are. We're the species that stops, the species that cares, and I have never been more proud to be human. On Valara Prime, preparations were being made for something that had never happened before. A formal alliance ceremony between humans and Valari, to be followed by the first interspecies marriage under both human and Valari law. Taeyang stood in formal dress clothes, nervous as he had never been in his life. Beside him, Selara wore traditional Valari robes that shifted color with her emotions. Currently, they were glowing soft gold with happiness. "Are you sure about this?" he asked her quietly. "Marriage between species has never been done before. We don't know how it will work. ND. Mina? 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 Mina?" Solara took his hand. Through the touch, he felt her absolute certainty. "We'll figure it out together. That's what you taught us. That problems are solved together, not avoided." The ceremony was simple, but beautiful. Thesara officiated, speaking in the silent Valari way that now included special translators for non-empaths. Two species. Once strangers, now family. Two people, once separate, now joined. This is the future we build together. When they sealed the marriage by sharing emotions through touch, everyone present felt it. The depth of connection between them crossed the species barrier, as if it wasn't there at all. Daeho watched from the crowd, feeling oddly emotional. Ji-hei stood beside him. "You started this, you know. All of it. The rescue, the alliance, everything. I just refused to leave. The rest was everyone else. Don't be modest. You put your career on the line for strangers. You showed everyone what was possible. What happens now?" Daeho wondered aloud. "We saved one species, but there are probably others out there, suffering in silence. Do we save them all?" "Daeho, we try," Ji-hei said simply. "That's humanity's answer. We try." Months turned into years. The Valari population grew steadily. Children were born. The first generation to grow up in a clean world, with a future. They learned both Valari empathy and human caution, becoming something new and wonderful. The research station produced breakthrough after breakthrough. Valari quantum sensitivity led to new forms of communication, faster than light technology that actually worked, and insights into the nature of consciousness itself. They weren't just contributing to galactic science, they were revolutionizing it. But the Valari never forgot who had saved them when everyone else abandoned them. Every Valari child learned the story of the day the humans came. They learned the names: Daeho, Hyunwoo, Ji-hei, Bo-ra, Eunji. They learned what humanity meant, not as a species, but as an ideal. Other species noticed. When the Galactic Protection Service found another abandoned species, 36 species volunteered to help. The Valari were first in line, wanting to pay forward what had been given to them. A new era began. Not perfect, not without problems, but better. The galaxy learned that strength wasn't just about power. It was about using that power to protect the weak, to stand up when everyone else sat down, to care when caring cost everything. 50 years after the Eternal Dawn first arrived at Valara Prime, Miresi stood as the Valari ambassador to Earth. She was older now, her crystalline skin showing the elegant patterns that came with age. But her mind was sharp, and her emotions were strong. She spoke at the anniversary celebration. Her words translated, but her emotions felt by the Valari in attendance. 50 years ago, we were dying. abandoned, forgotten. We had accepted our fate. Then, humans came. Not for profit, not for glory. They came because we were alive and needed help. That simple. That profound. She paused, looking at the crowd. Many of the original crew were there, gray-haired now but still proud. You asked us once why humanity was different, why you couldn't look away from suffering. I think I finally understand. You remember. You remember what it felt like to be alone, to be vulnerable, to be dismissed, and you decided that no one else should ever feel that way. If you could help it. Omitting that, Hyunwoo stood in the audience, tears on his face. He had stayed on Valara Prime for 20 years before returning to Earth. He had trained an entire generation of doctors in Valari medicine, and he had never, not once, regretted the choice he made to stay. We built a monument on Valara Prime. Miresi continued. It lists every human who came to help us. Every name, every ship, every person who donated supplies. There are thousands of names on that monument. But we also included something else. A simple statement. Carved in both our languages and yours. On screens throughout the hall, the monument appeared. The statement read, "Here are remembered those who came when no one else would. Those who taught us that the measure of civilization is not strength, but compassion. This is what humanity means." The celebration continued late into the night. Species from across the galaxy mingled, sharing stories and building friendships. The Valari moved among them, sharing emotions of joy and hope. Daeho, now a very old man, sat with Thesara, who had somehow lived to see this day. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Thesara shared the memory of that first day, when a human captain had looked at a dying elder and said, "We won't abandon you." That promise had changed everything. As the party wound down, the younger generation of humans and Valari played together, completely comfortable with each other. They represented the future, a galaxy where different species didn't just coexist but thrived together. Jihei, watching them, spoke to Bo-Ra. "Do you think we made a difference?" "Really?" Bo-Ra smiled. "Look around. The galaxy has a protection service now. Species help each other instead of exploiting each other. The Union reforms are holding. Yes, we made a difference. And it started with one ship refusing to leave. It started with people choosing to care. Everything else followed from that." The celebration ended with a traditional Valari ceremony. All the Valari present joined their empathic fields, creating a wave of pure emotion that they shared with everyone in range. Gratitude, love, hope, joy, and underneath it all, the unshakable knowledge that they were no longer alone. Humans felt it like warm sunshine. Many cried. Some laughed. All understood that they had done something that would echo through history. They had saved a species. Yes, but more than that, they had proved that civilization could be built on compassion instead of strength. That night, as Hyunwoo prepared to leave, Miresi stopped him. "You were never invisible," Hyunwoo replied. "You just needed someone to look, and that, in the end, was humanity's answer to the galaxy's cruelty. When everyone else looked away, humans looked closer. When everyone else walked past suffering, humans stopped. When everyone else calculated profit and loss, humans calculated right and wrong. The Valari lived because humanity couldn't turn away. And the galaxy became better because one species decided that all life was worth fighting for. That was the lesson that echoed across the stars. We are measured not by who we are when it's easy, but by who we choose to be when it costs us everything. Humanity had answered that question, and the answer was simple. We choose to care.